Audio test 1 2 3. I'll do it now. Okay. Yeah. Audio test 1 2 3. Audio test 1 2 3. Audio test 1 2 3. This is Oscar. Oscar. Audio test 1 2 3. Audio test 1 2 3.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Round 19 of NPLW Victoria comes to an end at Lakeside Stadium on a glorious sunny Sunday afternoon as two historic rivals go head-to-head, South Melbourne and Preston Lions, in a game that carries such significance for South Melbourne in particular in what is going to be a massive 7 or 8 days for the club, very much season-defining as they head towards their Nike Cup final date with Heidelberg next Sunday. But today, they've got league action to contend with in a league game that they just have to win if they are to remain in touch in the finals race. A number of their direct rivals picking up wins over the weekend south, and as such, they currently find themselves 5 points outside the top 4. They need a win today to close that gap, and with the tough end to the season, they'll need to rediscover some of their best form if they are to sneak inside those top 4 positions and feature come September. My name is Oscar Rutherford, along with you for this afternoon's game. Preston Lions will be the team to kick us off. As you see Ellie Lamont there standing in the centre circle, ready to get play underway. And at the whistle of our referee, Daniel Woodiot, we are underway at Lakeside Stadium. South Melbourne take on Preston. For the Lions, there's not a whole lot riding on this game, in a season in which they've failed to replicate their highly impressive campaign in the top flight last time around when they made both the Nike Cup final and the NPLW Grand Final. They're hoping to finish the season strongly. Dan Foden has made 3 changes to his starting 11 from the team that drew 1-1 with FV Academy last weekend. Valentine Percy and Eliza Amendolia have both dropped to the bench for this afternoon's game, whilst Jade Feeks is a big miss for the Lions. She's unavailable for selection this afternoon. So into the 11 come Summer Kapanekia, Rosie Curtis and Ellie Talevsky. As we see a first foray forward for South Melbourne, looking down the right-hand side. And the offside flag means that Alexis Pantazopoulos' first involvement will be nothing more than a moot point for Justin Mikulev and his South Melbourne team, coming into today in desperate need of points and hoping to break their 4-game NPLW losing streak, which could hardly have come at a worse time for a team that was sitting second on the ladder just a handful of weeks ago. And as a result, the South Melbourne head coach has rung the changes, 4 of them in the starting 11 for this afternoon's game, led by the inclusion of captain Franny Iamano, who you just saw play that pass back to another one of the inclusions, goalkeeper Ayana Alyagi. Alongside those two, Liv Edwards and Alexis Pantazopoulos are into the starting 11. Edwards, the player there, sending that ball upfield, but out of play and will be restarted by Grace Johnston for Preston. To accommodate those changes, Christina Esposito, the goalkeeper, has dropped to the bench alongside Akisha Sandhu and Raquel Doralis. Meanwhile, the big absence from the matchday squad for South Melbourne today is Bella Sewards. She alongside Misha Westland, both not available for this afternoon's game, and it leaves a bit of a gap to fill in central midfield for Justin Mikulev. But they do have a fairly deep squad, including a couple of mid-season inclusions who we expect to see in and around that middle of the park area. Eva Gutschmidt, of course, one of those players, making the run to try and get on the end of this throw. And in the end, Preston will be able to reclaim the ball. The Lions did find themselves almost being dragged into a relegation battle a few weeks ago. You know that things haven't gone exactly to plan for Dan Foden's team this campaign, but certainly weren't expecting to find themselves in any trouble of losing their NPLW status, but they've quickly put those concerns to bed, picking up 4 points in their last couple of outings. That win at Bentley, important just to ease the tension before picking up another point against FV Academy last weekend. So it was this play with the ball now, Grace Johnston, who scored that late equaliser to secure the Lions a point. TJ Vlanich plays it back to her goalkeeper, Alyagi. A little bit of danger of coughing up the ball on their way out, but they do make it work, South Melbourne. Alana Byrne, looking to be stepping into that central midfield position, has spent the vast majority of this campaign in the defensive line, but with the absences that they have in the middle of the park, South Melbourne. Byrne stepping up into that role that she played for so long at Boleyn, and that paving the way for Liv Edwards to return at the heart of defence alongside Annie Haffenden. As we see Johnston trying to release Summer Kapanekia, but TJ Vlanich always getting there first. It's a sloppy pass, though, as Georgia Henderson nearly winning the ball back for Preston, high up. And in the end, South Melbourne will be content to have themselves a throw. As mentioned, a big weekend for South Melbourne's main rivals in the finals race. Boleyn, Alamein, Box Hill and Essendon Royals all picking up wins. A set of results that has heaped the pressure on South Melbourne for this afternoon's game. The Royals and Boleyn, you'd think, out of reach for South, so it's very much that 4th spot that the teams will be competing for. There really are 4 teams competing for just that one position at the edge of the finals: Alamein, Burundara, Box Hill and South Melbourne. Burundara's hopes taking a big blow last time out. That was yesterday's game against Alamein that they lost 2-1 in what always looked to be a finals shaping matchup and may well prove to be. Another one to come as well for Alamein after the cup final weekend in a couple of weeks' time, when they'll take on Box Hill United at Wembley Park. So the two teams who, if South Melbourne were to win today, would be ahead of them in occupying those 4th and 5th positions and currently keeping South Melbourne out of the final spots. They will be going head to head in a couple of weeks' time. So the potential to open the door for South as they need to put together a number of wins in the next few weeks, though, if they are to take advantage of those inevitable drop points. They've got a really tough run home, though. Baleen, Essendon Royals and Burundara, their 3 opponents after today, South Melbourne. So they really do need to win today to give themselves any hope. And, of course, the cup final next weekend will be far from a straightforward task against the league-leading Heidelberg United. This is Emma Checker for Preston Lions. As they look to pick their way through South Melbourne. Checker sends it to a central defensive partner in Talevski. Johnston hoping for Kapanekia, but the ball goes too wide. This is Taranto sending it forward, but not on the same wavelength as any of her teammates. Taranto, who we know is such a versatile player and a real asset for the coaches that she's played under. Looks to be playing in quite an advanced role and fairly central today. That ball sent towards Furukawa. It's Taranto who picks up the loose ball. Grace Taranto with the shot. And it's just wide of the post. A first really high quality look in on goal. And that player we were just talking about, Taranto, may well be playing as a striker today. And she very nearly gave South Melbourne the lead. So our first corner of the afternoon to be sent in by South Melbourne. It's an awkward one for goalkeeper Maggie Byrne to contend with, and she'll be grateful to see it beat just about everyone and eventually be cleared away. Slight pause as we wait for one of the spare balls to be sent over to TJ Blanich. Still not totally clear as to the position Grace Taranto will be taking up today. Almost a withdrawn forward kind of role. Nikki Furukawa is the furthest forward at the moment, has Alexis Pantazopoulos on the flank and Liv Bomford circling around that area as well. Here is Furukawa back to Taranto, who again takes on the responsibility of pulling the trigger. That one a little further away than her previous attempt. Edwards playing the ball across, and Iamano there to do some mopping up. Liv Edwards, of course, taking on one of her former clubs today in Preston. That ball falling the way of Taranto. Taranto hoping to release Furukawa. So indeed, it does look as if it's two up top for South Melbourne and Furukawa and Pantazopoulos, with Taranto in behind, playing as that kind of bridging role between midfield and attack. The likes of Eva Goodsmith and Liv Bomford hoping to provide some creativity. Here is Taranto for South Melbourne, looking to get past Mizuho Yamada, and the defender toe pokes it out for a throw. South Melbourne coming into today having lost their last 4 league games. There was that win against Berlin in the Cup semi-final in amongst that run, which has at least kept some good vibes going around the team, but it's certainly been a difficult month. As that ball sent into the area, hoping for Pantazopoulos. The attack is continued as Bomford hoping to latch onto this loose ball. But coming back to support with the defence was Sama Kapanekia. South Melbourne well in control of the territory at the moment. That run of losses for South Melbourne starting here at Lakeside against Heidelberg, an understandable defeat. But then a couple of shocks as they went down away at Brunswick Juve, then losing here at Lakeside against Box Hill before heading out west and suffering a 2-0 defeat against Springside, or Spring Hills rather, at Springside Recreational Reserve. Failed to score in their last couple of games as well, South, so plenty to work on. Scoring goals has all of a sudden been quite a challenge for South, which is extraordinary considering just how prolifically they were scoring in the first 6 weeks of the campaign. Scored 23 goals in their first 6 weeks. If you look at their last 9 league games, though, they've only scored 5 goals. So an extraordinary drop-off, which has made life very difficult for South Melbourne and certainly contributed to their dropping of points in the last couple of months. With that being said, they do still have a really solid defensive record. No team has conceded fewer than South Melbourne this campaign. Right now, they're looking forward on the attack. Pantazopoulos, one of the breakout stars in the South Melbourne team this campaign. Having a shot from range, that one dribbling wide of the post as well. So just at the moment, Preston enduring a bit of a difficult spell. Checker hoping to relieve some of the pressure, sends the ball forward. Eventually falls into the path of Lamont. Lamont will continue her run on the ball. Certainly a lively attacking force is Ellie Lamont, and she draws the foul as well. So some really good play from the Preston forward, just relieving some of the pressure on the defensive line and earning her team a set-piece opportunity. See Emily Roach currently standing over the ball and perhaps readying to deliver it into the penalty area. Number of tall targets on offer. Goes a little bit too close to the goalkeeper. Aoyagi spilled it and needed her teammates to help clear the ball away. It's a little bit of a nervy moment at the back for the South Melbourne goalkeeper. This is Nishimura. And Preston will continue to apply a bit of pressure of their own. They have themselves a corner. It's been a good couple of minutes as a response from the Lions. Nishimura with the delivery. It's right into the heart of the box. Follow up from Checker inside. The clearing ball from Haffenden does enough in the end. It's very much a role reversal in the last few minutes. Preston pinning back their hosts. That ball is awkward to deal with for Edwards, and Lanich's clearance is scuffed a little. Johnston to get us back underway. Tries to work in combination with Roach. Edwards now met by Talevski. And Bomford's header finds Taranto. That pass well read by Nishimura, who now hopes to set Lamont in behind. Now Yagi quick off her line and closing down the chance though. Bomford now has a little bit of space for South Melbourne. Looks out towards Pantazopoulos. Looking to generate some space for herself. And in the end it deflects a long way out to that left-hand side, and Henderson happy to watch it roll out for her teammates to restart play with the throw. Mizuho Yamada. This, of course, the second meeting between these two teams this season. They did play back in round 8 at BT Connor Reserve. That one ended in a 1-1 draw. Ellie Vlaming's goal for Preston cancelled out by Mamiambo's late equaliser. Two players not in the squad for this afternoon's game, or indeed at the same club as they were at that time. These two teams, of course, some of the main beneficiaries of the mid-season transfer window and the opportunity to bring in some A-League talent. We'll see plenty of that on the pitch this afternoon. He's one of those players with A-League experience in Franny Iamano. And so, having endured a difficult 5 minutes or so, South Melbourne now looking to regain some control of the general play. Taranto uses her body cleverly. Now for Rakawa, presented for the ball. It's awkward for Rosie Curtis, who did really well to power her way past a couple, but in the end the numbers paid off for South Melbourne, and Eva Gutschmidt had a speculative effort, which once more Maggie Byrne content to watch roll wide of the target. That draw between these teams earlier in the campaign, their second ever draw out of 22 meetings, so it's not often ending in a stalemate when these two teams go head to head, certainly not historically. Fair to say though, South have got the better of Preston, both across the course of their competitive histories, but also in the few years since Preston's return to the top flight of women's football. Danger there as Iamano mistimes the attempted pass, and that could open up an opportunity here for Lamont, and now Roach, who did well to flick it over the top of the South Melbourne captain, but the pressure will be relieved by the referee's whistle. These teams have met 6 times since Preston's return to the top flight in 2023. South Melbourne have won 4 of those 6 meetings. Preston just the 1. if you want the last time that Preston beat South Melbourne in a competitive women's fixture here at Lakeside, you'd have to go all the way back to 2008. So it's been a long time between drinks for Preston at this particular venue. Perhaps they'll see themselves as having an opportunity today against a fragile opponent based on the last month of results. This is Iamano. Uses Edwards, who's under no shortage of pressure, and Nishimura picks up the interception. Kapanekia now inboard, hoping for Roach. Edwards headed it away. Kapanekia might get another crack at it. Montfort doing her best to make life uncomfortable. Now Johnston inboard to Henderson. Nishimura. Well met, though, by Alana Byrne. Byrne loses out to a combination of Curtis and Nishimura. And once again, Preston find themselves on the attack. The Lamont ball in is a good one. Still the attack continues. Lanich with a vital intervention before Alana Byrne says that's enough of that. Taranto thundered it into the defensive block of Talevski, who wins the ball back as well. Some positive defending from Eli Talevski. And that ball for Pantazopoulos cut out by Grace Johnston. So Taranto posing plenty of troubles for the Preston defence early doors, just throwing her weight at it. And we will have a little bit of a pause here as Liv Edwards has taken a seat just on the halfway line. I think that stemming from just a couple minutes back when she made the defensive header, Edwards. It came in with plenty of power, did the cross, and Edwards was in the right position to head it clear, but not in the right position to avoid maybe a bit of damage to her head. Does look to be in good spirits, the South defender, so hopefully it's just a minor concern and she'll be able to continue with this game as both teams take an opportunity to huddle amongst themselves and assess how they feel things have gone in the first 24 and a half minutes of this one. It's been a really entertaining opening to the game. Both teams having moments where they've been in the ascendancy. As we see Edwards on her feet and heading towards the sideline before she's invited back onto the park. So play will now get back underway with a Vlanic throw. It's Furukawa making the stealthy run in behind the Preston defence and does just enough to keep the ball in play. Nikki Furukawa gets it back from Vlanic and it's a good cross as well. Taranto almost getting to it. Pantazopoulos hoping to pick up on the scraps. It's well defended by Preston. Henderson hoping to get it away from her team's goal and does just enough as Iamano plays it out of play. Nishimura for Preston. Out to the left-hand side. Looked to be Henderson putting the cross into the middle of the box, but no one really near it from a Preston perspective. And now Taranto's ball to release Pantazopoulos is a good one. Checker cleverly waiting for the ball to just get slightly away from her young opponent and able to stick a toe in there and get the ball clear. So if this game were to end as it currently stands in a draw, that would take South Melbourne's tally to 28 points this season. Just the one behind Burundara in 6th. But 3 behind Box Hill in 5th and 4 behind Alamein in 4th. And with just 3 league games remaining after today, they'll need a number of favours from the teams around them if they are to sneak into finals. For Akawa with the half-hearted attempt. When you look at, for example, Alamein's run home, they've got that game against Box Hill at Wembley Park, which will be really important in determining who takes that 4th spot, you'd think, but then they end the campaign with a home game against Bentley and then a game away at Springside Recreational Reserve against Spring Hills, who will perhaps have nothing to play for rather, as we see another break in play, this time for one of the Preston players who's taken a seat. I believe it's Georgia Henderson on that far side. Just a couple of injury concerns on either team in the last handful of minutes. Are, of course, plenty of battered and bruised bodies at this stage of the campaign. No doubt a number of players contending with injuries that they've been having to just play through at this stage of the season. It will well and truly take the sting out of this game, these couple of pauses, as we hope that the afflicted players are all good to continue. Liv Edwards hasn't had any recurrences of her earlier concern. There is plenty of quality on both benches that will certainly play a part in this afternoon's game for Preston. The likes of Eva Harrington and Liza Amendolia, Elena Vatke as well. Of course, leading scorer Valentine Percy. All options to which Dan Foden could turn. Henderson making her way to the sideline and will continue to receive some treatment there, so we'll see if that will force the Preston midfielder out of this game. For South, they've got a couple of youngsters in Heidi Dalton and Eva Kokotis that they could turn to, as well as some more established quantities at this level. Akeisha Sandu, Raquel Doralis, Dragana Klajic, all options for Justin Mikulev. Now it looks as if Preston will continue with 10 players. Curtis did really well to turn out of a tight situation, prompting the referee's whistle and quickly getting play back underway through Johnston down the right-hand side. Johnston hoping to slide it towards Lamont. Falls out instead to Kapanekia. That was across into a decent area from Summer Kapanekia, but no one making the run. Haffenden at the back, just hoofing it forward where Taranto was on the receiving end. Preston will be allowed to continue this little attacking spell that they've worked for themselves, despite the numerical deficit that they're contending with. Curtis let the ball slip past her. Now Bomford hoping to start a South Melbourne counter-attack. Pandazopoulos, though, didn't have the space to do what she would have liked. And that ball for Vlanic slightly overhit. Seen both teams showing plenty of attacking ambition in this game. Talked about South Melbourne's scoring situation across the course of the season. Preston, they've scored plenty of goals for a team in their position on the ladder. In fact, it's really just South and the top three teams who've scored more goals than Preston Lions. So that's certainly remained a strength of theirs this campaign. Vlanic's cross into the middle will almost find its way to Goodsmith. Yamada there as well. Sent back to Iamano. Now Furukawa wasn't able to control it with the chest, and the offside flag was raised in any case. Looking as if Henderson will be good to continue, and as invited by the referee, Henderson wins that header. Unfortunately doesn't quite find a teammate with it. Vlanic crossfield ball towards Furukawa, who has Yamada to contend with. That's a fantastic turn from Nikki Furukawa. Goes with the cross towards Pantazopoulos. Just a tiny bit too much height. That was a really smooth move from Nikki Furukawa for South Melbourne. Pantazopoulos trying to return the favour with a cross of her own. Furukawa retreats back. And the cross to the far post, hoping to pick out Taranto, but once more the final ball ever so slightly off its target. And so Preston will restart play with a goal kick as we head into the final 10 minutes of the first 45. Certainly a lively encounter up to this point, albeit with those couple of disruptions for injury treatment. Talevsky's ball cut out by Byrne. Furukawa having to shield her eyes from the sun as that ball was on its way towards her, and you saw the idea with the Taranto run. Maggie Byrne, though, continuing to patrol her goal to great effect. Henderson goes a little bit more direct. Kapanekia nearly able to jump onto the ball, but had three South Melbourne players in close proximity, which crowded her out. So that ball was sent forward by Edwards. The referee's whistle coming for the late challenge from Ellie Lamont, so South Melbourne will get another go at it. Furukawa and Taranto combination continues. This time it's Taranto thinking of firing the shot. She did so, and it caught a touch on its way through as well. So South Melbourne with another corner opportunity coming in from that far side. See TJ Vlanic heading towards that corner flag. Has made the 2 hands up hand signal. Huffington, Byrne, Taranto all in and amongst that crowd around Maggie Byrne. Corner sent in. Yamada at the front of the pack. Out as far as Gutschmidt, back to the corner taker and Vlanic. Henderson's ball headed by Vlanic. And the end result is once more TJ Vlanic on the ball, back in her more usual left full-back position though. Taranto hoping to find Gutschmidt in some space on the right-hand side. That ball won back by Emily Roach, who now charges forward with Ellie Lamont for company. Roach decides to go herself. That one a little bit too straightforward for Ayana Aoyagi. Didn't have to move a great deal, but a threatening counter-attack sent forward by Preston Lions. Emily Roach, one of those players who joined the club mid-season, having spent the A-League campaign with Western United. Just earning that opportunity in part for some excellent performances here at Lakeside, playing for South Melbourne last campaign. Now hoping to do some damage against her former teammates, who will be all too aware of the threat she poses. Haffenden looks towards South's top scorer in Nikki Furukawa. About 3 Preston bodies in and around there, able to do the defensive work though. That's a nice turn from Curtis. Now Alana Byrne. Seen a lot of that in this first half. Lots of interceptions, passes being cut out. Both teams have taken a fairly direct approach. Happy to send long balls forward and leave the work to their attackers, or someone to make a run from deep and score a wonder goal from halfway down the pitch. It's just made it tough for either team to get any real flow in their game. Furukawa has looked maybe the most dangerous player on the pitch. This is Pantazopoulos though. Hoping to skip clear of Johnston, who didn't give her young foe much space, and there's an ambitious long-range attempt from Alana Byrne. Some dispute as to whether the Preston goalkeeper actually touched it before it went behind. And indeed, the final call is that she did. So South Melbourne continuing to pile on the pressure as we head towards the half-time break. Ball sent in by Bomford. It's again to that same central area. Byrne did well to get a fist in. And Kapanekia doing her defensive due diligence. It's a good first touch from Henderson to skip around Franny Iamano. South winning back the ball, though, is Haffenden in the heart of South's defence. Looking to pick out Furukawa. Of course, would be a second consecutive season that South Melbourne have missed out on finals if they were unable to sneak inside the top four. Having been crowned champions in 2023, had a bit of a drop-off last campaign, and there's certainly been an improvement this season, but at the end of it all, their success may hinge on that Nike Cup final against Heidelberg as their only real prospect of silverware. Talevsky stepping out of the defensive line again. She's done to good effect in this first half. Once again, they've got a decent result, the Lions, from Talevsky's work. So with 30 seconds left in the first 45, you wonder if either coach will be contemplating significant changes for the second half. Both have looked somewhat potent, but also vulnerable. South, you'd probably say, have edged things in terms of generally being slightly better in the general play. Preston far from out of this. There's 3 minutes remaining in this first half for either team to make a late move. Hoping to do so here is Ellie Lamont. Uses the supporting run of Johnston. Johnston thought about the cross, instead faked past Bomford. And then the reverse ball asking a lot of Summer Kapanekia. And Ayana Aoyagi will gratefully collect the ball. Burn again for South Melbourne, cleverly nutmegging Emily Roach. Goodsmith lost track of the ball and her feet. Throw taken short to Roach. Roach crowded out by Iamano, but quickly restarting play with the throw. Coming across was Haffenden, sending it back from whence it came. You'd think Preston would be relatively content to take the 0-0 scoreline into half-time. They know that the more that time goes on in this game, the more the pressure builds on South Melbourne. They're the ones who really need the win. And maybe those Preston counterattacks will have more and more effect as the game progresses. If they are to do so, they'll need better quality than that going forward. Talevski, who's had a good first half, well over hitting that ball. Maybe one more good look on goal for South Melbourne before the halftime whistle comes, though. This is Bomford. That's clever for Taranto. Nearly turning clear of Talevski, but really solid defence. And once more, Preston repel the South attack. Byrne pulls the trigger from a long way out. That one never going to trouble her namesake in goal. And that is half-time at Lakeside Stadium. Still awaiting the opening goal. 0-0 is the score. South maybe with the better chances. Grace Taranto in particular had maybe the best look. Her shot narrowly wide of the post. Preston, though, also posing their fair share of threat, particularly in those counter-attacking moments, but plenty still to play out in the second 45 here at Lakeside. A massive afternoon for South Melbourne. But as they head into the sheds for the break, the scoreline reads South Melbourne 0, Preston Lions 0.
Let's go!
Welcome back to Lakeside Stadium. Second half underway between South Melbourne and Preston Lions. 0-0 the score at the break in a game that South Melbourne must win if they are to keep their finals hopes alive heading into the final few games of the campaign. A trying first half at times, both teams having looks at goal, but ultimately a fairly scrappy affair. Neither team able to really dominate proceedings or establish any meaningful flow to their football. We'll see if that remains the case in the second 45. Preston Lions, of course, experts at making life difficult for their opponents, and they've certainly done that in the first half up to this point. Or in the game up to this point, I should maybe say, as we see Franny Iamano's throw towards Grace Taranto. This is Nikki Furukawa. Has both Yamada and Nishimura to contend with. Gets through, does Furukawa. Still Nikki Furukawa uses the support of Bomford. Vladic in a bit of space on the left, sends it into the box, but Emma Checker used her body wisely to get there ahead of Alexis Pantazopoulos. Emily Roach uses Miri Nishimura, who sends it out in turn to Yamada. Exchange between Yamada and Kapanekia. Iamano for South Melbourne back into the lineup this afternoon. Now looking to just outmuscle Summit Kapanekia, and did so to reasonable effect. Made it a long way down the wing and eventually wins her team a throw as well. Throw in taken short towards Taranto. Yamano just loses track of the ball on its return. Emma Checker here for Preston. Looks out to the right-hand side. As the Lions look to get their first real spell of possession in this second half. Nishimura up towards Kapanekia. Decent combination there between Johnston and Lamont. Nothing comes of it though. Looks as if Summer Kapanekia has switched flanks to remain on the camera side of the ground. Now on the left wing, taking on Franny Iamano as her direct opponent. Chance here for Preston through Lamont. This is Rosie Curtis. Brought in from Melbourne Victory in the mid-season window. Rosie Curtis, now Nishimura. Goes with the long-range ball that eventually falls into the path of Lamont. But that will be a fairly straightforward claim for Ayana Aoyagi. Almost a slip there from Yamada, but she recovered in time to get there ahead of Furukawa. Now Henderson, who looks to have shaken off that injury concern from the first half. And whistle from our referee, Daniel Woodard, for the little drag back on Henderson by Alana Byrne. Daniel Woodiett this afternoon, assisted by Josh Berry and Matt Maroulis as the linos, and Dimitri Ganaris is our fourth official. Emma Checker to deliver this ball into the penalty area. Meets the head of Vlanic. The chance still alive for Preston. Header on goal sent by Johnston, but Aoyagi always favourite to it and made a strong claim. First 5 or 6 minutes looking fairly similar to what we saw in the first half. Both teams spending some time in the ball or on the ball rather, and making life difficult for their opposition when out of possession. Kapanekia met by the challenge of Goodsmith, but it falls the way of Roach. Roach gets it out to that right-hand side, but that ball through met by Ayana Aoyagi. Now Goodsmith. Still ever Goodsmith, charging forward, hoping to return the ball to Taranto. This is Bomford. Skips past Nishimura, still live Bomford. And just in time, Maggie Byrne collapses on the ball. That's a clever run from the former Bentley Green. But in the end, the final touch, just taking the ball a little bit too far away from her. This is Goodsmith. Turns one way, then the other before using Alana Byrne. And that ball just getting away from Grace Johnston, so South Melbourne will restart play with a throw. It's a really strong run from Lamont. Has a couple of supporting runs. One of them is in the form of Roach, Emily Roach. Positioned her body well and made good contact with the strike. Once again, though, right down the throat of Ayana Aoyagi. Not for the first time, Preston. They've had a decent look on goal, but the shot much too straightforward for the goalkeeper. Aoyagi, who's rotated fairly regularly with Christina Esposito for the starting goalkeeper slot. Mizuho Yamada's throw is short to Henderson, but it was an uncharacteristically heavy first touch. It paves the way for Nikki Furukawa. Furukawa, you saw her idea. Space in that top left corner, and that's where she directed the shot. Unable to execute as she had seen in her mind, though, Nikki Furukawa. Certainly was a big part of South Melbourne's electric first couple of months of the campaign. Nikki Furukawa has continued to pop up since then on the occasion, including in the Nike Cup. Might be able to see there in the players' race what looks to be some of the South Melbourne senior men's team. There is an NPL men's game to follow this one this afternoon between South and Green Gully. Liv Bomford. Down the left-hand side, that pass for Furukawa. And Macheka a step ahead. Haffenden again out towards Bomford, who's been heavily involved in the first 10 minutes of this second half. That one a little bit over her head. And as that ball goes out of play, we will have an opportunity for an early change in this second half. It's the last involvement of the afternoon for Liv Bomford. She will be withdrawn and receive an early mark for today's game. And replacing her is Dragana Klajic, whose involvement has been a bit spotty this campaign. Struggled at times to get herself on the pitch, Dragana Klajic, but has the majority of this second half to make her mark. A regular for South Melbourne over the last handful of years in the middle of the park. This is Kafanekia. Nishimura a little bit more central and picked up by Emma Checker. This is Roach. Cleverly created the space for Kafanekia. Back to Roach. Kafanekia again has manufactured herself a little bit of room. That shot though into the mass of South Melbourne bodies. Franny Amano doing very well there to win back the ball and then putting her body between the ball and Georgia Henderson, drawing the foul. Eva Goodsmith now on the turn, getting clear of Henderson, and there was a little tug back on the shirt. And that's why the referee's whistle came, as well as the yellow card for the Preston midfielder. So first real look from a dead ball scenario for South Melbourne in this second half. Eva Goodsmith with a really strong run. Ball planted a long way out from goal though, so too far you'd think for an attempt on goal from TJ Vlanic. But a number of players readying to make their charge towards the goal. Vlanic sends it in over her teammates' heads though. Maggie Byrne will gratefully collect. Space here for a Preston counter-attack. Had that ball been able to get away, had both Roach and Kapanekia. And now Emily Roach, as the ball does finally get to her, is offside. So a decent look there for Preston, and perhaps starting to see some more pockets of space for Preston to exploit in transition, just as South Melbourne become more desperate in search of the opening goal of this game. It is they who need the win much more than Preston. Byrne sends away Goodsmith again. That time, though, it's slightly out of reach. Well worked by Johnston, skipping past Klajic, the substitute. Could now get onto this loose ball, but was blocked away from it by Talevski. Here is Klajic again, uses Pantazopoulos. Clever back heel, but the Preston numbers getting back to defend, including Grace Johnston. Pantazopoulos for South, just keeps the ball in play. Her cross, though, was much too skinny. So well won back by the youngster, but unable to create the chance that maybe her work deserved. Here is Roach. Uses the outside run of Henderson. Edwards was there to send the ball clear. Throw-in is a long one to Nikki Furukawa. Furukawa looked to manufacture some space for herself, but the sliding challenge curtailed the attack. And now it's Preston springing forward again. Roach has the run being made by Johnston. Grace Johnston with the cross. Oh, it's just beat the goalkeeper, and it beats the post as well, though. I think she was going for goal there, Johnston, despite the central run being made. Can't blame her. She got a good amount of power in the effort. Piriana Aoyagi, grateful to see it fly wide of not just her hand, but also the post to her right. So Preston edging closer to really making one of those counter-attacking moves pay. That's a really well-worked move by South, though. Furukawa leaping to get the ball ahead of her taller foe in Checker. Emma Checker, who's dropped to her haunches in the aftermath. Furukawa confirming the welfare of her opponent. Fairly innocuous incident, prompting the Preston central defender to go to the ground. And that break and play will allow for further changes to be made. Looking as if Eva Harrington is coming onto the park in place of Rosie Curtis. Whilst Grace Johnston's afternoon has also come to an end, and Elena Vatke will be brought on for the final half hour or so of action. So Dan Foden making his first couple of moves soon after the hour mark. There is the first involvement for Harrington. And Vatke looking to be on that right wing position. She's the one making the run now. It was a well-timed one as well. The ball just not having enough juice on it to get to the substitute winger. Continuing the run is Elena Vatke. Sends it into the middle of the box, but Liv Edwards dealt with it with composure. Vatke, the player brought in from Alamein. Vatke again on the ball. This just her 12th league appearance of the campaign, so has been featuring semi-regularly for this Preston team. Seeing a couple of players coming off the bench who haven't maybe seen as much game time as they would have liked this campaign. Dragana Klajic, this just maybe her 7th or 8th, I think, league appearance of the campaign. That ball crossfield is a really good one to pick out Pantazopoulos. Still Pantazopoulos has Furukawa in the middle. Nikki Furukawa blazes over the crossbar. It's as good a chance as we've seen all afternoon. Composed on the ball was Alexis Pantazopoulos. Furukawa, though, well, getting right underneath her shot, scooping it over the crossbar. That may be a reflection of how difficult the back half of the season has been for Nikki Furukawa. After the goals flowed in her opening couple of months, they certainly struggled to continue on that trend. So both teams having some real looks on goal. You get the sense that the chances will continue to increase in terms of their quality. Furukawa again for South Melbourne. Looks to cut in board. Now Byrne. Quickly crowded out was Dragana Klajic, confirming this is her 7th league appearance of the campaign. Now Eva Goodsmith. Henderson playing it off her younger foe. Goodsmith, one of a number of players in the South Melbourne team who've played in the FE Academy setup quite recently as well. Eva Goodsmith making the move across to Lakeside. Alongside the likes of Heidi Dalton and Alexis Pantazopoulos, Eva Kokotis as well, who we might see in the final 20 minutes of action. Eva Harrington's throw coming in. Now Iamano skips past a couple of opponents, including Vatke. Flanic back inside to Iamano. And the tug back draws the referee's whistle, so South Melbourne will get another look at goal, another set piece. Not for the first time this afternoon. Franny Iamano wisely using her physicality and pace to cause some difficulty for the Preston defence. Into the final 20 minutes of the 90. South Melbourne would love a goal at this point. to give themselves the advantage and move towards 3 points that they so desperately need. Cross sent in, well met by Yamada. There'll be a second attempt for South Melbourne. Taranto wrestling with an opponent. Sent as far as Haffenden. And now a chance for Kapanekia to launch the counter. She looks out to the right-hand side where Lamont was waiting. Liv Edwards, though, expertly jumping in and sending the ball back towards goal for her team. Eventually things will perhaps settle down a little bit as both sides look to get back into their shapes. Iamano again making the run from one side of the pitch to the other. Releases Pantazopoulos. Alexis Pantazopoulos, still the cross. Oh, it's a brilliant delivery, Alexis Pantazopoulos. You could hardly ask for more. Just a little bit too much pace on it for a teammate to bundle it home. Pantazopoulos' influence is continuing to grow. That break and play will allow some further substitutions to be made. Just so we confirm the welfare of all the players involved. So a really good look there for South Melbourne again. Not to be. It looks as if they've held off on the subs for now. Just as the momentum continues to build for the hosts. So can South Melbourne drive home their advantage? Pantazopoulos has been a big part of this uptick in intensity from South and their better looks on goal. That ball forward cut out by Haffenden. This is Iamano. Once again, Alexis Pantazopoulos in space. Shifts it onto her right. That time it was well defended, and Summer Kapanekia has lots of space down this left-hand side. Iamano's quick to close it down. That ball well won by Alana Byrne. Sending it forward. There's the crucial toe from Talevski, which directed the ball towards her centre-back partner in Emma Checker. We can see Justin Mikulev making the choice to hold off on those substitutions just with his team really looking as dangerous as they have at any point in the match. Dan Foden, though, may be readying some changes of his own, which he will indeed make. Georgia Henderson and I think Summer Kapanekia, the two players who will be withdrawn. And they will make way. Henderson, you'd think, replaced by Eliza Amendolia. And the youngster Mia Power is the other one to come into the game. just 19 years of age. Dan Foden doing his best to try and wrestle back a little bit of control in this game, which, well, at the minute, if either team is to score the decisive goal, it looks as if it will be South Melbourne. Let's not forget, though, how threatening Preston have looked at times in these counter-attacking moments, and we'll see if that can become even more the case in the last 15 minutes of action. As well, defended by Heather Gutschmidt, denying Eva Harrington the chance to release power down the left-hand side. South Melbourne will now make that change, or one of those changes that they were contemplating before. It's the end of the afternoon for Nikki Furukawa. Justin Micalleft opting to trust youth as Heidi Dalton will be brought into the game. Furukawa, that one golden opportunity about 10 or so minutes ago, which if South are unable to get the win today, I think she'll certainly be thinking about. But a chance for Dalton, another one of the players who came across from the FE Academy team. And will she be able to nab a late winning goal for South? That ball attempting to pick out Klajec. Just missing out though. And now Preston have maybe a 3-on-3, soon to be 3-on-4 as Flanich scurries back. That ball from that key met by Edwards. And the attempted step out of defence from Talevski wasn't able to keep the ball away from Taranto. And now Pantazopoulos. Well, we've seen this before. Charging down the left-hand side, heading towards the byline. That well defended, though, by Emma Checker. We'll just have another brief pause in proceedings as another player just requires some treatment, maybe for some cramp. Looks to be Ellie Talevski, I think, who's back on her feet and just communicate with the trainer her physical state. Nil-nil's not a regular feature for either of these teams. South have played the 1-0 earlier this campaign against FE Academy. Preston, no nil-nils involved in 2025. At least not up to this point. But if neither team's able to score in this next 10 minutes plus stoppage, that's where we will be ending up. Vatke makes the daring run down the right-hand side. Liv Edwards has shown some real composure under pressure throughout the afternoon. Opportunity here for Ellie Lamont. Wrestling with Haffenden. Defended it just enough. Mentioned that Preston haven't been involved in a 0-0 this campaign. They haven't been involved in a 0-0, indeed, in any of their seasons back in the top flight since 2023. It's not the way that they play. But at this stage of the season, with their season as it looks, perhaps that slight reduction in urgency and desperation that you'd usually associate with this Preston team. Right now, they're having a real hard time containing the threat of Pantazopoulos in particular. That's a wonderful ball cross-field to Eva Gutschmidt. Gutschmidt gets past Harrington, continues her run, but the ball central never likely to pick out a teammate in that position. This is Byrne. Just hoping that a run was maybe being made to that far post, but not to be. For Preston, a point today would take their season's tally to 20. So almost mathematically guaranteed their NPLW status for next campaign. Not that that's really a concern at this point anymore. This is Pantazopoulos. Her ball. Can't find a teammate. You hear some of the yells from across the pitch. South Melbourne trying desperately to maintain their intensity. A point doesn't do them a whole lot of good. Takes them to 28 for the campaign, but still 4 behind Alamein, 3 behind Box Hill. And with games against Essendon and Burundara to come. Only one of those games at home as well, the one against the Royals. It's season on the line stuff for South Melbourne. Pantazopoulos, cross again. That one not as good as her previous efforts. Comfortably across the goal for Maggie Byrne, who will be in no rush to restart play. Preston's next game after Cup final weekend is, of course, a big one, even regardless of their respective league standings, when they welcome Heidelberg United to BT Connor Reserve on a Friday night. Always a big occasion when those two clubs go head-to-head, and, well, for Preston, taking on the league leaders, who may well be crowned champions on that day, depending on how they fare against Preston. So the Lions will be doing their best to deny the Burgers the chance to be crowned premiers at BT Connor Reserve. South Melbourne have a massive game of their own the following day, heading to the Ven to take on Boleyn. This is Pantazopoulos sending through Taranto. Grace Taranto's shot brilliantly blocked. Eva Harrington, the player, coming to the rescue for Preston. And maybe as well, paving the way for Preston's attack of their own. This is Amendolia, hoping for power. She was second favourite against Edwards, but the central defender just playing it out for a throw. So a chance for Preston to spend some time in the South Melbourne half and maybe make things particularly nervy for their hosts. Eva Harrington, who's certainly made an impact since being introduced into this game, takes the throw short to Yamada. Now Checker's header back out towards Harrington. Just about keeps it in play. Preston just a few minutes away from doing a great disservice to one of their great rivals in South Melbourne. A point which would go a long way to ending South's finals hopes. Really is an opportunity to play spoiler in the final few weeks of the campaign when you're in Preston's position. Of course, that game against Heidelberg as well. Preston then ending the campaign with a couple of away games, going to CB Smith to take on Brunswick Juventus, so potentially some ramifications for the relegation battle in that one before ending the season at Wembley Park against Box Hill. So even if there's not a huge amount to play for themselves, Preston, they will certainly still have a big impact on how the final ladder pans out. South Melbourne has mentioned a couple of times. After today, they've got the cup final at the home of the Matildas against Heidelberg before an away game against Bulleen, back here at Lakeside to take on the Royals, and then finishing the campaign away at Burundara. South and Burundara, as things stand, looking the least likely to sneak their way into finals, so if they're not careful, that could end up being a dead rubber fixture. Both teams will be working their hardest to avoid that outcome. And for South, that has to start now. 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes of regulation time remain. They need a goal, South Melbourne. Preston, though, are making it very difficult for their hosts. That ball sent clear to Haffenden. Ball upfield to Gutschmidt. Amendolia hoping to pinch the ball in a dangerous spot. This is Klajic picking up the scraps from Vatke's attempted chest down. Now Pantazopoulos. Looking to get past Talevski. Still Pantazopoulos. It's a wonderful cross along the deck. Just in time, the Preston defence able to deny Grace Taranto. How different this game could have looked had Taranto been able to finish off that chance early in the first half. The first real look at goal that we saw in this game. And South Melbourne have themselves a throw. South will make a final couple of substitutions as they hunt this winning goal. The ball sent in by Pantazopoulos, off target, behind for a goal kick. And Justin Mikulev will now make his final move. Evie Gutschmidt withdrawn alongside Grace Taranto. And it's two attacking players, Raquel Doralis, Eva Kokotis, brought into the game. It's now or never for South. Doralis with the 3 goals to her name this season. It would be quite a moment to grab her 4th if she could. Four minutes of second half stoppage time to be played. 4 minutes for South to get the 3 points they need for their finals ambitions. Preston, though, have the throw and the ball in the South half. That's clever from Amendolia to Power. Power with the cross. Wasn't able to drag it back enough for Vatke. But it's all well and good for Preston, spending more time in the South Melbourne half. Flick on header from Vatke to Power. He goes with the cross, meets the head of Lamont. Made decent contact, the Preston striker. But running away from goal, it was always going to be difficult to get the power she needed. Now Doralis. Still they go forward, South Melbourne. And Tezopoulos brought down. And it's another free kick for South. Is this their best route or their most likely route to goal? Well, every outfield player, bar a couple, are in and around the penalty area for this free kick delivery. TJ Flanich sends it in. Can't find a teammate's head though. And the attempted spring forward by Amendolia. That pass into the path of Doralis. Inside to the far side of the box. Tough for Kokotis. And Emma Checker sending it as far away from goal as she can. Klajic. Passes behind Eva Kokotis. Emily Roach now for Preston, sending it towards Harrington. There's a couple of options in the box if Harrington opted to play the cross. Instead, she holds up the play and retreats to Mia Power at the back. And Preston will soak a few more seconds off the clock. Amendolia with the turn. Roach again from a long way out. Emily Roach. It's awkward for the goalkeeper, but she'll be grateful that it's over the crossbar and onto the roof of the net. The shout from Preston coach Dan Foden is make it hard here. They're not wanting South Melbourne to easily get from one end of the pitch to the other. Some calls for the ball having gone out of play. This is Nishimura. Cool as ever up towards Roach. And still Preston are the ones doing the attacking. This is Lamont. Just, I think, slipped as she looked to play the ball, and it's a long way from the goal, and maybe a little bit worse for Ware as well. Ellie Lamont in the aftermath. Is there enough time for South Melbourne to make one more meaningful attack out of this game? Goal kick only as far as Elena Vatke, but TJ Flanich hurling the ball towards the Preston half. Pantazopoulos has proven the most potent force in this game. She goes to ground and has been fouled. So one more chance for South to throw all the bodies forward perhaps. Will be a yellow card for delaying the restart. Preston will be more than happy to cop any number of those if it means they can get to the full-time whistle with a draw. I think the obligatory Dan Foden yellow card also coming out there. Wouldn't be a Preston game without one. Final chance for South. Sent towards the box. Flick on header. Attempt to send clear. Doesn't get far. Kokotis thought about the shot. Falls to Doralis. Now Heidi Dalton with the attempt. Blocked behind by Yamada. The referee will allow time for this corner to be taken. One last attempt for South. Everyone in or just outside the penalty area, except for the goalkeeper and Franny Iamano for South. Corner sent in to the heart of the box. Scrambled in. South Melbourne have done it. With the last kick of the game. Corner into the massive bodies. And the ball is bundled home. Unbelievable scenes at Lakeside. And with their season hanging by a thread, South Melbourne have done just enough now, surely, to secure the win. The voiceover says it was Alana Byrne who got the final touch. Need to go back and do a forensic analysis of that massive bodies to confirm. But it is the last kick of the game that wins it for South Melbourne. A corner sent in, just a scramble at the goal mouth. And South get the ball over the line. They get the 3 points. And with that, their finals hopes remain just about alive. They've matched the result of many of their rivals, and they head into the Nike Cup final next weekend off the back of the latest of winners here at Lakeside. A thrilling conclusion to a big game between South Melbourne and Preston. It's the hosts who have come away with the win. Full-time score here at Lakeside. South Melbourne 1, Preston Lions 0.